Round number 11 of the Afterburn Indycar Series comes to you live from Oulton Park, set in Little Bedworth in Cheshire. Welcome you live to round 11 of the Afterburn Indycar Series. Well, Vincent in the booth by himself at the moment because Doyle is too lazy to get out of bed. Currently in the dying stages of qualifying. And Nico Brand is back on form, setting pole position so far for 1 minute 15.998. The only driver to get into the 1 minute 15s, and the gap between himself and Daniel Lee in second position is currently 7/10 of a second almost. Daniel Lee currently sat in the second position with UC Nimmerman in third, Jono Matikainen in fourth, Matthew Lamberton in fifth, Mark Warmington in sixth, Thomas Collins in seventh, Randy Crosno in eighth, Julian Pham in ninth, Dave Jinks in 10th, and David Stowe in 11th. I believe each one is trying to set himself a qualifying time at the moment. But this is a beautiful track here at Oulton Park. Very narrow and some very big braking zones, which for these drivers has proven difficult through testing and practice over the last couple of days. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. We've got ourselves about a minute left on qualifying. Just having a quick look at Jono Matikainen in the number 34 Glacier Racing Machine. See whether he can improve on his current time of 1 minute 17.462. This heat is coming now under the car lube bridge, and for these drivers it's kind of a really difficult point of the season for them, where they managed to settle themselves down, get themselves into a rhythm. But with the month of May upon us, the Indianapolis 500 on the back of everyone's mind, which will be taking place in just a couple of weeks' time, as Jono Matikainen gets himself about a tenth faster, keeps himself in fourth. He's a tenth behind UC Nimmerman. He won't have time to really improve on that. Tough time for some of these drivers, and it really is showing in some of the speed of drivers who expect to be a little bit further up. So qualifying is over now. The field will be gridding to start what will be a 58 lap race here at Oulton Park Circuit. As I say, it is a beautiful circuit set in Cheshire in England, and we're just going to run through the grid for you momentarily, just to give you final confirmation of the qualifying results. Your pole position man is Nico Brand in the number 24 DH machine, a 1 minute 15.998. Daniel Lee, he's currently sat in the second position with 1 minute 16.671. Then UC Nimmerman into the 1 minute 17s, 117.249. Jono Matikainen lining up on the outside of row number 2. Then Matthew Lamberton and Mark Warmington, they share row number 3. Gap between those drivers always is second as well, with Thomas Kroll, Randy Crosno lining up in row number 4. Julian Pham and Dave Jinks in row number 5. Julian Pham 1 minute 22.4, Dave Jinks 1 minute 24.7. Difficult times for Dave Jinks, and then David Stowe 1 minute 25.864. Each one didn't actually manage to get a solid qualifying lap in, so I'll be starting from the rear. And what we'll do is we'll take you on a little journey of the Oulton Park Raceway as the drivers come around it for the first time. Very tricky racetrack. 14 corners here at Oulton Park. Not a track that is very forgiving for these drivers, and that's going to really play into their hand as this race progresses. We're currently looking on board Nico Brand, the pole position lap. So he'll take you through a lap at pace speed around this circuit. Some pretty funny corner names as well. I see the pace car now pulling off to lead the field for this pace lap, coming down immediately into turn number 1, which is Old Hall Corner at 90 degree left hand corner. 90 degree right hand corner even. Very, very fast through there, and then they come underneath the Carlu Bridge, and then they'll come into turn number 2 with turn 3 Cascades. Is that long sweeping left hander. You see the field are pretty much nicely double file at the moment as they come through. Down that right hander momentarily, and it's very, very fast here at Oulton Park as well. We've talked about some very big braking zones. You get to see that very often. Sorry, the pace car is in already. Green flag in the air. We are racing here at Oulton Park. Very short pace. I'm sorry, Nico Brand into the wall immediately from the start of the race. missing its acceleration point. Drama already, and Nico Brand, unbelievable there for him. God knows what happened to him as he came to the green flag. It looks as though he just tried to put the power down a little bit too early, and Nico Brand's woes continue in the Afterman IndyCar series, and we didn't even get past the start-finish line. So immediately Nico Brand, he is looking as though his day might be done in that number 24 DX Racing D-Point car. Just as he came down to the start-finish line, he put the power down a little bit too early, clipped the wall, and Nico Brand, dramatic for him there. Daniel Lee, he will inherit the race lead from UC Neneman, with Jana Metakea moving himself up into the 3rd position, Matthew Lambertson 4th, Matthew Lambertson's actually lost himself a couple of positions already to Randy Crosno and Mark Warmington. So Matthew Lambertson going backwards early on. Mark Warmington's getting himself a position. He is now up in to the 4th position, with Randy Crosno now sat in 5th, Matthew Lambertson 6th, Thomas Kroll is currently sat in the 6th position as Matthew Lambertson goes off again. Somehow managing to keep it off the wall as they come down to complete lap number 1, but Lambertson having difficult times. I believe that has dropped him all the way back now in to the 8th position. He's coming under pressure from teammate in Yves Warner. So, to reset the field for you, your field at the moment is comprised of Daniel Lee as your race leader. The gap between himself and Jana Metakea is 1.821 seconds as UC Newham sat in the 3rd position, Mark Warmington in 4th, Randy Crosno in 5th, Thomas Kroll 6th, Matthew Lambertson has dropped down into the 7th position with Yves Warner in 8th, Shillian Brown in 9th, Dave Jinks in 10th, but Nico Brandt, difficult day for him there, as Dave Jinks also into the wall, having a moment with Julian Pham as they came through a difficult right-hander. Dave Jinks got himself a little bit of damage. I think he's trying to bring himself down to pit road, as Julian Pham is also down pit road, so a lot of cars involved in incidents early on here. And so Mark Warmington, he himself is off now, just as they came underneath the Carlu Bridge into the penultimate corner. Looked so he just got himself clipping a curb a little bit, and he's not going to have fire to bring it that down to pit lane, but Mark Warmington has now relinquished himself the 4th position. So drama going on early on here. Meanwhile, Daniel Lee is your race leader, and the gap between himself and Jana Metakea is now 2.5 seconds. And all that drama, we're in on lap number 3. So having a quick look with Daniel Lee in the number 64 Mencap car. He is doing a great job out there. His last lap, 1:18.344 in that car. And one thing you will notice is that coming into these chicanes, you have tyre barriers literally right next to the curb. So if you just quit your car too far, get oversteer. While at some tracks, you have the opportunity to, just regroup yourself and get yourself a penalty maybe. In this situation, you've got very real possibility of ruining your race car just because the tyre barriers are right there. So 3 laps score complete of 58 here at Oulton Park. Daniel Lee, he is still your race leader. Jana Metakea has moved himself up into the 2nd position, getting himself around UC Neneman in the battle for the 2nd spot, as Neneman had a little bit of an incident on that last lap. Randy Crosno, he's currently sat in the 4th position. Thomas Kroll is now in 5th, but in the 6th spot, he just lost position to Matthew Lambertson. He's trying to get himself back on the charge as he's now trying to hunt down Randy Crosno in the battle for the 4th spot. And Randy Crosno, he's going to have to be very careful as they come into the braking zone for this right and then left chicane towards the end of the lap. And one of the difficult parts of this racetrack is getting your car slowed down. As Crosno runs wide, that will give Lambertson the opportunity to make the pass. up into the 4th position, and Thomas Kroll goes past as well. Randy Krosnow has now moved himself down into the 6th position, and he's putting himself slowly into the clutches of Yves Warner, who is himself trying to charge his way through the field. So out front, Daniel Lee, he is still your race leader. Last time by, he set a 1 minute 18.100. By far the fastest guy on the track at the moment. To give you an update on Nico Brandt, he has managed to get himself back onto the racetrack, but he is scored very close to being on the end of the lead lap, as himself is coming down into that hard right-left chicane. And for Nico Brandt, Yoni even, this is going to be an interesting challenge to see how well Nico can get through the field.
Indeed it is, and Nico actually set 1.1 seconds faster lap time than Daniel Lee did on that last lap. Nico Brandt did a 1:17.0, whereas Daniel Lee did 1:18.1. So good early charge for Daniel at least. Nico at least. But yeah, he's gonna have his work cut up if he's gonna have to pick 8 places around this racetrack. Not the easiest one to overtake.
No, we haven't really talked about overtaking here. At point, this track is literally only 2 car lengths wide. As Daniel Lee is coming now into the final corner to complete lap number 5 here at Oulton Park. And you really have to set up your pass as well. Use the momentum of the long straightaways to try and get yourself around. As last time by, Daniel Lee set himself a 1:18.087. Capturing himself in the Arnomet Kane is now up to 3.8 seconds. But what will be interesting to see is how hard Nico Brandt can charge. And he's had some terrible luck on the roadside, seeing that he dominated on last season in the Afghan Indycar series. But he's going to have really put the hammer down if he's going to try and get himself a position back. Meanwhile, Lamberton and Thomas Kroll, they are continuing their battle. Lamberton seems to be a bit rugged early on in this race. Last time by, Thomas Kroll is only 1/10 of a second slower, but Lamberton is really trying to eke out a gap as he had his early off-track woes in lap number 1.
Yeah, surprisingly, a lot of struggling from this throughout the field, the early stages of the race. I mean, 6 laps completed, and we already had leaders spinning. We already had 4 off tracks from all different persons. I mean, the track is difficult, but a bit. I think it's a bit about being too nervous about this racetrack. I mean, Jarno is the only guy, like a close friend of mine, who has had experiences around this racetrack with the Indycar and the fixed series, and he told me that the track was very slippery, adding to the fact that it's narrow.
Yeah, and that slippery race surface means with the high-speed corners, you've got to really hit your lines, and into the big braking zones, you don't want to catch a brake too much, as Dave Jinks goes down the lap there to Daniel Lee. And you've really got to be careful to make sure that you don't get yourself a little bit too heavy on the power coming off the corners, or too heavy on the brakes coming into them.
Meanwhile, following the progress of Nico Brandt, he's 15 seconds behind the 8th place machine of David Stowe, but still lapping 1.4 seconds faster per lap now as Daniel Lee is. So Nico is catching 8 seconds a lap for David Stowe, so it should be like a lap and a half. When Nico catches David. It will be interesting to see how long it takes for Nico to fly right by him, or if David is going to just let him by.
Yeah, and that 1.4 seconds a lap, just looking at my watch, as Matthew Lambertson is out of the race, relinquishing that 4th position after another incident for that number 19 Boy Scouts of America car. And it seems to be that Matthew Lambertson's had a difficult day here at Oulton Park, as I believe the incident was on lap number 7. As we were just talking about, into one of those high-speed corners, high-speed left-handed, just getting it onto the grass. And the grass is so slippery here that in the event that you do get off track, it's so difficult to try and gain yourself and move straight into the tyre barriers. But Nico Brandt still has got the chance to try and hunt down Daniel Lee, but he's going to have everything going his way now.
Indeed, and yeah, as you said, the grass is slippery. But if you notice that okay, I'm gonna go off track now, and you have time to get off from the throttle, then you have the chance of avoiding the tire barriers or the walls. But if you're just like getting out of the corners, as we see, and Nico going to the double apex right-hander here, if you when you're dedicated to that throttle right there, right at the edge of the track, and then you clip the grass, then it's basically like going over the ice.
So for those of you guys just joined us, we're currently working lap number 8, completing lap 8 of 58 here at Oulton Park, round 11 of the Osborne Indycar Series. Biggest story of the day, Nico Brown, after qualifying on the pole position here, just put the power down a little bit too early, and he smacked himself into the right hand side guardrail between pit wall, so between the track and pit lane. So he's had to get some repairs to his race car, and he is over a minute behind the race leader Daniel Lee, but lapping about 1.4 seconds a lap faster than a number 64 Mancap machine. So all eyes are seeing just how much Nico Brown can charge here. Last time by a 1 minute 17.482 for Nico Brown. And he's kind of, each lap, he's kind of about a second at the moment faster than Daniel Lee.
Yeah, and catching David Stowe 7 seconds that last lap, and the gap is now only 2.3 seconds, so should be, if not at the end of this lap, it's going to be during the next lap, but he's going to take the 7th place right now, as Matthew Lambertson has DNF and Julian Pham also behind him.
Yeah, so Dave Stowe, he's currently struggling in the number 96 machine, 96 Club England car. He's having a difficult day there, as you see there. He just moves out of the way to let Nico Brown pass, and no point in fighting when Nico is that much faster. As he's one having a spin there, he was working the 6th position. In fact, he gets himself into the wall, as, I'm not quite sure what that is, I think that was turn number 4, getting himself into the wall with having to reverse it out. Just got himself a little bit of front wing damage, but more importantly, he's lost himself a lot of time, and that is going to hurt his race progress.
Yeah, let's see if we can catch on the replay of exactly what went on with Yves Warner here.
And I believe so, it was into turn number 5. He's one at the Shell Oilers corner. He just got a little bit too far on the left hand side, got himself into the wall, outbraked himself. As Nico Brown's day is done. Nico Brown, just as we were talking about that, he, at the same corner as Yves Warner, gets himself a little bit too hard on the brakes, missed the braking zone, hits himself into the wall, and Nico Brown, after trying to charge himself back down to the race lead, which would be pretty much the most impressive drive we've seen, gets himself into the wall, and Nico Brown's bad luck in the Osborne Indycar Series this season continues.
Well, while we're at it, let's have another look at the replay of Nico Brown's incident then.
And for Nico Brown, it just looks as though he entered the corner with a little bit too much power, tried braking, as he talked about the track, so slippery, and as soon as he got himself off track, there's absolutely no ability for him to really keep it out of the tyre barriers. Nico Brown's day is done, and it's going to be disappointing for him, as he really looks as though he was going to break his string of bad luck, as Daniel Lee getting it a little bit sideways there, just being able to save it there as they came into turn number 3. And for Daniel Lee, you know, he's got himself a 4.4 second lead now to Jarno Matikainen. And at what point will Daniel Lee start, you know, easing off a little bit, not taking as many risks into these corners as a winner last week at Brands Hatch? He might want to make it 2 in a row.
Yeah, actually, Jarno and Daniel are lapping pretty consistently. They're actually swapping which one's faster on which lap. Sometimes Jarno catches 0.2 of a second, sometimes he loses 0.2 of a second. And seems to be a little bit of cat and mouse game going on right here. And still, Jarno is not letting Daniel Lee to get a victory off easily. But surprisingly, big gaps are this early in the race.
Yeah, the field is pretty much spread out all the way now through the field. Jarno Matikainen's got himself a 10-second advantage over Justin Ingram. Himself's got himself a 10-second advantage over Thomas Kroll, who's currently sat in 4th. That's going to be of a bit of an advantage to drivers like Daniel Lee as they start to come and try and put laps on this field.
Possibly.
I only say that because, you know, getting himself through one driver is going to be a lot easier here than having to go through, you know, 2 or 3 drivers involved in a close battle on the racetrack. As we've talked about, this track is so narrow and so slippery. The faster car really will have to really think about their braking zones to make sure that they pay attention as they come up behind the slower lap traffic.
Ooh, yeah, right on board with Jarno Matikainen, who's like getting past the lap traffic and almost has to go through the grass over there, just right before the braking into the chicane. That was a scary moment.
Yeah, I think David Stowe there thought that he was going to go around in one direction. In fact, Jarno was going to go to the right, and wow.
That was as close as you can get before spinning into the grass.
Yeah. And somehow, Jarno Matikainen still manages to keep it on the racetrack and hit his braking zone into the chicane.
What do you think? Did the new NTM have its part in that one, saving that slide? Because
oh, most definitely. I think the new tyre model not only helps him there, but I think also probably helps him as he broke into the chicane as well, as that prevented him from having a second tank slapper. So good driving though by the number 34 Glacier Racing car of Jarno Matikainen. He's currently sat in the second position, but he's now short 6 seconds behind the race leader, which is giving Daniel Lee a little bit more of a breathing space. With that incident last time by, Matikainen set a 1 minute 20.163, whereas Daniel Lee did a 1 minute 19.3. So he lost himself a good second in that last lap, having to take avoiding action over the number 96 machine of David Stowe. As David Stowe has currently scored 1 lap down.
Yeah, but like we saw last week in Brands Hatch, the race is far from over until we say the checker flag. A lot can happen in the last 3 laps even, and it doesn't have to be a race incident. It could be just an engine blow up randomly, or just going off track or something else.
Oh yeah. Having a look at each one, he's currently sat in the 6th position in that number 88.
Leaders in the pits.
So Daniel Lee making his first pit stop of the day then at the completion of lap number 13. So he's going to get himself full fresh tyres and top himself up with race gas. That is going to give Jarno Matikainen the race lead. And is Daniel Lee on a 2-stop strategy in relation to Matikainen's 1-stop?
Looking at he put in lap 14, it almost looks like a 3-stop strategy.
I'll take that back. So yeah, while Daniel Lee was able to set some stonking lap times, maybe he just felt his tyres were going off and wanted to make full advantage of that fresh rubber as much as possible. I'm not quite sure whether or not that's going to be the way to go, because even though this pit lane is small, with these long straightaways, you don't gain as much in the corners as you do in some of the other tracks. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Daniel Lee can get himself back into contention here, and looks like is a different strategy to Jarno Matikainen in that number 34 car. Giving an eye to see if Matikainen comes into pit lane this time by. Looks like he is staying out.
Yeah, it's surprising to see a 3-stop strategies applied in this type of racetrack, as you said. I'm not sure if that's the case. I mean, maybe he just burned his tires and took a fresh ones and slightly more fuel, make a longer stint. But if that's a 3-stop strategy, that's pretty bizarre.
Yes, and Jarno Matikainen is now your race leader. UC Ninnerman promoted up into 2nd position. Daniel Lee, he keeps himself up into the top 3. Currently riding, I believe, in the 3rd position. Having a look with Thomas Kroll sat in 4th, Randy Cosner in 5th, and then Izawana is currently sat in the 6th position. Having a look back through the rest of the field, Dave Jinks, he has managed to recover to get himself up into the 8th spot, and then Julian Pham is currently running in 9th. But already through retirement in this race, and names that you wouldn't expect. Nico Brandt is out of the race, Mark Warmington is out of the race, and Matthew Lambertson as well. So some big names out here early on at Oulton Park.
Yeah, and all because of the personal mistakes. No outside crash, no reasons being an outsider in some other crash. Complete 100% personal driver errors, and that's a weird thing to see, especially Nico Brandt and Mark Warmington going off like that.
Yeah, the only real on-track incident between multiple drivers we've seen was Dave Jinks and Julian Pham on working lap number 2 just as fast as he was trying to rejoin the racetrack, just tagged Dave Jinks as he was sweeping past him. That has put Dave Jinks scored 2 laps down for the most part. But this field spread out as much as it is, it really does become a case of almost racing yourself more than racing other people, because by this point drivers will kind of know what their relative pace is to others, and trying to push to find an extra 2 tenths of a second a lap could be the difference between keeping it on the black shiny stuff and putting it into one of those Armco barriers.
Yeah, it's I personally experienced. I have this type of race that we have right now, with the field this widespread. This is actually far more difficult for me personally to drive, with a solid race pace and being steady with the lap times, or consistent, should you say, compared to if I'd have someone half a second behind me, which forces me to maximize my pace all the time and focus completely on racing. With this much spread in the field, it tends to give some drivers, me included, tends to give you a bit of lost focus moments, and they can punish you. I mean, especially with a track like this where the touching of the grass can be lethal.
Just having a think back to the strategy of Daniel Lee in that number 64 Mencap machine. He started in second position, so it could be that he was doing a 2-stop strategy but inverse. And by my watch, you can make a 2-stop strategy work and take a little bit less fuel on your second stop if you were to do it pulling the tank all the way back up. Now, could Daniel Lee have done that to try and get himself around Nico Brandt at the start of this race, get himself some clean air, which after Nico Brandt's lap 1 woes pretty much negated itself and almost forced Daniel Lee into a box in his battle with Jarno Mäkinen?
Tough to tell. We have to wait and see if, when Daniel is going to make his next pit stop. But yeah, that might be the case. Not sure if Nico's early accident was because of the fact that he was on a heavy strategy and he had a heavy car. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait at least the 30 laps before we can say anything for sure.
Last time by, Daniel Lee did a 1 minute 17.023 as he's coming up to the rear of UC Ninnemann in that number 82 car, getting it also sideways as he's come through the final corner, completing lap number 17 of 58 here at Oulton Park. And this is going to slow Daniel Lee down just a little bit, but he has got himself that run down to turn number 4 and 5, which he could try and use to his advantage. If that doesn't work, of course, he can use that long run up the hill down towards Hislop's corner to try and get himself around using Newman. But it looks like Newman is very good on the brakes here, and it's going to be a case of whether Lee can get the drive off the corner, which he's doing now. This is going to set himself up well, get himself a little bit of wheel on the left of the curve there. But will he be able to make that dive down the inside coming into this corner? I don't think he's close enough. No, he just backs off the throttle a little bit there.
Yeah, he just braked early, lift the brake, just let the car settle, and just waited for Jussi to make his own braking maneuver, just to avoid any extra contact, since he knew that he was too far away to try a dive in. Smart move there.
Yeah, so after he set himself 1 minute 17.
Now he's got a chance.
Last time. Oh! On the grass! That is not a place where you really want to try and make a move. But now you see Newman just letting him go.
Yeah, that was a sportsman-like.
He was in a hurry. Yeah, he could see he was in a hurry, just letting him go there in that number 64. But I want to see his lap time as he crosses the line at 1 minute 18.3. So he lost himself a second there, which means that Jarno Mäkinen actually managed to. Mäkinen still lost 4 tenths of a second that last lap, as he himself had a slower lap, as he's working lap 19 now. So Daniel Lee still gains a little bit overall, but he lost himself about a second off the pace. And if he is doing short stints, those seconds really do count. Yeah,
but knowing Jarno personally, that guy tends to have the weirdest strategies that you can imagine. Sometimes you prevail, sometimes you fail to as badly as you can possibly fail. But he could possibly have the heaviest car of all, and he tries to go for a one-stop strategy or something like that. I mean, I don't know if it's fast, if it's slow, if it's dumb or smart, but we have to wait and see. But I mean, you can expect any turn for this guy.
And one of the things is Oulton Park only ever been raced out once in the IndyCar series since its appearance on the iRacing surface. It really does mean that there are still so many unknowns here at Oulton Park, especially when it comes to things like strategy. And with the change they made to this car a couple of weeks ago, one of the big ones being fuel efficiency, it does open a lot more strategy options than even 2 months ago.
Indeed, and it's fun to see them the iRacing making decisions that allow more options for racing instead of one solid strategy that only can be applied.
And for more information, go to iRacing.com.
You beat me to it.
So, currently working lap 20 of 58, Jarno Mäkinen is still your race leader. Gap between himself and Daniel Lee, 10.9 seconds. He's managed to put himself already about a 2 second, for almost 3 second gap to Houston in the 82 machine. Thomas Kroll, he sat in the 4th position, 31 seconds behind the race leader, but he's got himself a 10-second cushion over Randy Crosno. Having a look between the lap times of these two drivers, Thomas Kroll in the number 63 machine, last time by 1 minute 18.7. Randy Crosno a full second slower. Thomas Kroll does look like he has some form of pace here in the latter stage of this fuel run, as he just set himself his fastest lap last time by.
Yeah, but I have to say that looking at, we're currently on lap 21 out of 58, and the midway point is 29 laps. So if Jarno doesn't come in on this lap or the following, my guess is that he's on a one-stop strategy, and if that's the case, then he has a serious shot of winning the race.
Issues with Dave Jinks in the number 76 West USA car. He's going to have to be very careful when he brings that car back onto the racetrack, seeing if he's got traffic behind him. He's got Daniel Lee. And yes, Dave Jinks just able to let Daniel Lee go past there. But Dave Jinks, he's having a difficult day in that number 76 West USA car. Once again, he's going to struggle to bring that car back down to pit lane. I believe he's got himself some severe left side suspension damage and some front wing damage. So can he bring it down to pit lane? As he's having a tough day, and he's now being overtaken by Julien Pham in the number 78 nuclear energy car.
Yeah, having that much damage in your front suspension is not a good, pleasant thing to have. I had that in a 2-hour Sebring race with my Ford GT, and I was able to just coast with the car, but every time I touched on the throttle, the car just decided, hey, I'm not going to go that way, I'm just going to go flip 90 degrees sideways. That's not a pleasant thing to have. It's going to be a long half a lap.
Yep. And Daniel Lee last time by a 1 minute 17.344. Jarno Mäkisen's last lap, a 1 minute 17.823. In fact, that was Jarno Mäkisen's fastest lap of the race. So, this doesn't look like it's all going Daniel Lee's way. Yes, he was able to charge early on in this stint, but Jarno Mäkisen is putting some solid lap times down in that number 34 car.
Yeah, Jarno is basically on a learning basis. With any car he takes, any track he goes into with that car, it always tends to be like 50% at least, like he's never seen the track or the car before. He always takes his time to learn the track. But the problem with Jarno is that he doesn't race as much, focus on one car that he could. I mean, if he just focused on 1 or 2 or 3 cars, he would be probably seriously fast with any car, but instead he decides to just drive whatever he wishes, and in the end he always is fast as he collects speed during the learning process. But it seems to take like 2 or 3 races, and every race you see him where everyone else is just settling to their rhythm and maintaining a solid lap. Jarno is commonly the only one that keeps improving through the race, as he always finds new spots to go faster.
Yeah, and if you were watching yesterday, you would see that he was in the TFR Super Cup at Road America. It's exactly the same situation there. He started off the race slightly off the pace. By the end of it, he was right there with a couple of the other drivers, even though his race didn't end up in the wall at Canada Corner there. So he's looking for a little bit better here. As the last time by, Daniel Lee He set himself a 1 minute 16.870, responding to that pace of Jarno Metskane, setting the fast lap of the race. He's coming up to put a lap on Yves Oulton any moment now. So this draft, we haven't talked about the draft here, but down these long straightaways, you can actually set some of your fastest laps of the race by drafting these slower cars. If you can, get yourself in a position to lap them at the right time.
Yeah, indeed, you can, especially with the high downforce setup. I mean, high wings that we have on these cars and in the roadside. The long straightaway before the chicane is a very good place to draft you some serious straight line speed, but you have to be sure that the guy you get a draft from doesn't interfere with you braking into the chicane.
Yeah, so, and just having a look at the lap time of Jarno as he came across the line.
Three fastest laps in a row, personal fastest laps for Jarno.
Yeah, staggering how Jarno can just pick up the pace like that. And perhaps he was hitting himself a fuel number earlier on. We are approaching halfway distance at the line this time by. We actually will be showing with half the laps complete. We said this is a short race at Oulton Park. It really is a short race, as we are almost at the halfway point here of round 11 of the Afterburn IndyCar Series, coming to you live from Oulton Park. Will Vincent and Jenny Backman filling in for Doyle Johnson in the booth today. We don't know where Doyle is. He's probably gone to sleep or something.
Should it be like 29 laps at halfway point? So it's
yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a good 5 laps before the midway point. But it looks to me as though Jarno is going to go for one stop.
Yeah, sorry, my dyslexia kicked in again there. But yeah, we are 5 laps away from halfway here at Oulton Park. And still, I'm going to have a look to see what Jarno's lap time is across the line. His last couple of laps, he's got himself into the 17s, and this time by, he sets himself a 1 minute 18.386, a little bit slower there. But before that, a 1 minute 17.8, 1 minute 17.7, 1 minute 17.6. So unless he had some troubles in that last lap, really has been picking up that pace. Meanwhile, it looks as though Thomas Kroll, he's dropped off the pace a little bit. He set his fast lap up 5 laps ago, but ever since then, he's almost dropped off his pace by a second. And that is allowing Jussi Nilonen to continue bridging that gap between 3rd and 4th position. Although his charge against Daniel Lay really has faded. He's now 7.5 seconds behind that number 64 Mencap car.
Yeah, I mean, well, Yves Warner in the 88 car, being a 1 lap down, scored his personal best lap of the race and that last time by 1:18.968. So matching top 3 guys' pace at the moment. Sadly, a lap down.
Yeah, and he's one again who's one of those drivers that he doesn't often do a lot of practice, and he often just comes into races on the fly. But some good, impressive driving there by Yves Warner in the number 88 car, as he's now going to put himself a lap on Dave Jink, managing to get himself back onto the racetrack. But he'll be a little bit cautious of his West USA car now, as Yves Warner diving down to the inside as they come down to the final corner. Both drivers almost getting off track there. Dave Jinks giving a bit too much room. He's not managing to get past without any further drama between those 2 drivers.
Yeah, this is one track where I seriously would not want to race with any car. This is like basically Laguna Seca with the icy grass.
So yeah, I think you make a very good analogy about that actually, because Laguna Seca is a very narrow track itself, and we'll even come there later on in the Afterburn IndyCar Series. But the one thing, thankfully, this track doesn't have is that dreaded corkscrew, which always causes so many issues. Daniel Lee, last time by at 1 minute 17.2, so he's kind of in that 1 minute 17 region. He has been there for the last 5 laps, with the exception of that staggering 1 minute 16.8 on lap 22. So his charge on Jarno Metskane continuing, as Jarno looks as though he might have burnt his tyres out a little bit, because he's dropped about half a second slower than he was earlier on. Having looked to see whether he's making, yes he is now, he's making that dive down pit lane with 26 laps scored complete. So he's pretty much going to be on a one-stop strategy, unless he's going to have to make a splash and dash at the end.
Yeah, my guess would be the one-stop strategy. I don't know if he just took the tank full of fuel and just wanted to see if he is able to go through all the way to the midway point. But it's surprising to see if he's on a one-stop strategy, pitting on lap 27. Now he has to do 31 laps. I mean, if the full tank would have been capable of holding him back for the whole 29 laps, I would have been personally willing to take that risk and go for the 29 laps instead of 27. But we'll see.
Yeah, so he relinquishes the race lead back to Daniel Lee. We'll keep an eye on UC Ninham. He's currently moved himself up into the second position with Matikayan pitting. But Matikayan is going to be closing down UC Ninham and oh so quickly himself as he brings himself back up to speed. And just a minute, we'll show you the sight and sound of Oulton Park. So to run through your top 5 then, with 27 laps scored complete, round 11 of the Aspen Indycar Series, presented by Glacier TV here at Oulton Park, this beautiful 2.69 mile racetrack with 14 corners for those technical minded of you. We are running the international layout without the British chicane, that's why they go flying through the first chicane that you see and then making that right left turn later on down the straightaway. Daniel Lee, he is your race leader. The gap between himself and UC Ninham is 15.0 seconds. UC hasn't pitted, which is why he's currently scored as 10 seconds ahead of Jarno Matikayan in the number 34 Glacier Racing car. He himself has made his first pit stop of the day. Thomas Kroll currently sat in the 4th position with Randy Crosno in 5th. He's one of 6. He's made to get himself around David Stowe and Julian Pham. And Dave Stowe is in 7th, Julian Pham in 8th, and Dave Jinks is in 9th with your retirement.
Daniel Lee in the pits.
Yeah, Nimrod is into the pits, sir. I'm sorry. And he is now coming down pit lane to make that his first pit stop of the day.
So Daniel Lee is on a 3-stop strategy.
Yeah, 2-stop strategy.
3.
At least.
3.
Well, you never know.
Oh! There goes that strategy.
Yeah, now he's on a 3-stop strategy at least. And Daniel Lee getting collected there by Dave Jinks. Just as he came off pit lane, Dave Jinks was spinning ahead of him. And I'm wondering whether Daniel Lee will be able to get himself back onto the racetrack, whether he's going to have to get himself a tow. I believe he does. That is disastrous there for Daniel Lee in the number 64 machine.
Yeah, I cannot imagine what... yeah, he would have got a black flag anyway for passing the... crossing the exit white line there at the end of the pits. But yeah, that was an unfortunate moment for Daniel Lee. I mean, the worst possible scenario you can have is that you're coming out of the pits, the only line you're allowed to take, and you have a spinning car in front of you.
Yeah, just have a look back at the replay of that, and the incident itself started down at the start-finish line. Dave Jinks is going to go down a lap to Jarno Matikayan. Jarno makes that move down the inside. That you see Dave Jinks, he had the outside, he gave him the inside line, was on the outside, just got himself onto the grass, and even though there's a bit of a runoff area there which drivers often use, just got himself a little bit too far to the left, and as he tried to correct the car, he got a tank slapper, and then you see Daniel Lee there. He came out of pit lane. He was going to get himself a black flag anyway, but that has really hurt Daniel Lee's charges in this race, and he's just currently sat in pit lane getting himself repairs to his race car.
Yeah, that was a funny incident to happen, because now you have basically wrecked out the leader, and you have a lap down car who caused that, but the Dave Jinks off track was because of Jarno. So if you would have to blame that on someone, who would you put their money on?
I just think it was calamity of errors. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Dave Jinks saw Jarno coming and gave him the inside line coming into turn number 1. So you can't really blame Jarno there. I think it was probably just the inexperience of Dave Jenks as he came through turn 1, not realising just how hard that turn tightens up and where that kind of like runoff area starts, where you can really put power down on the exit of turn 1, that then possibly caught him out. But Daniel Lee, though, I mean, he could have potentially slowed his race car down, because I say he was going to get himself a black flag anyway, had he have come out and managed to avoid that wreck. So the question is, could Daniel Lee have really done anything different in that main cap machine? I'm not really sure if he could either.
Meanwhile, Justin Immonen in the pits, so he's going to lose the lead, and actually Thomas Kroll is running up into second. But Thomas Kroll is still the only one car that on the track that is yet to make a pit stop. So Thomas Kroll is on a one-stop strategy.
He's on a very long one-stop strategy, as we are now past the halfway point here of the race, 58-lap race here at Oulton Park. So move Justin Immonen back down into third position, move Jarno Kane up into third. Thomas Kroll currently sat in the second position in that number 63 DX machine, as he is coming down into that hard right and then left-hander there. His laps are now into turn 12, beautifully named the Knickerblock corner. Interesting story behind that one. Then he'll come down underneath the Advan Bridge, and I'm having a look to see whether he's going to make that turn down the pit lane this time by. You don't really get to see until they come off this last corner, underneath the Carlu Bridge, and you'll see here down into, and I think that Thomas Kroll really has to come in the next couple of laps. Having a look to see what he does this time by, and
looks as though
yes, he does.
Yep.
Yes, he does.
By the way, your guess, if Daniel Lee would have been able to survive, come out of the pit safely, he was on a 3-stop strategy, and Jarno was on a 1-stop, Thomas was on a 1-stop, Juicy is on 2-stop. Who do you think would have been the top 2?
I think that Jarno would possibly have got the race anyway. Juicy and Daniel Lee would have been very close between those two. I'm not too sure whether or not Daniel Lee decided to change his strategy halfway through, to get himself down to halfway and then, blitz it to the end. He had the opportunity to do so. I'm going to have a look back at his pit time to see what it would have been, how long he was sat in his pit box, do the maths on there. But it would have been interesting. If he was on a 3-stop strategy, I don't think Daniel Lee would have had the speed to charge down these drivers. We should just lose too much down in pit lane.
By the way, looking at if Thomas Kroll was on a strategy that he had a tank filled to the brim, that was on at the end of lap 31. Jarno pitted on lap 27. 27 plus 31 is 58. But when you add that and take into account that there's possibly a full lap because of the rounding of the fuel, will be close if Jarno took the full tank of fuel, if he's going to be able to finish the race with that fuel. He's probably going to have to save a bit.
Yeah, potentially just about half a lap. And just had a look back, and Daniel Lee really actually did fill his tank all the way to the brim there on that second pit stop, so he was aiming to go to the end on that tank of fuel. It would have been interesting to see with Jarno Kane and Daniel Lee on the same fuel strategy for the first time in this race, who would have come out on top. Last time by, Jarno set a 1 minute 18.079. Daniel Lee, after coming back onto the racetrack, a 1 minute 17.659. So Daniel Lee is still about 4 tenths of a second faster than Jarno, but now he is a full lap down on these drivers. So, Jarno Kane is now, once again, your race leader. Justin Immonen move him back into the second position, 25 seconds behind the race leader. Thomas Kroll is in third. He's won it in fourth. He moves himself up into fourth after the incident with Daniel Lee in pit lane. Manny Crosmo is up into fifth. Daniel Lee is now down into the into the sixth position even, with Julian Pham scored in seventh, with David Stowe in eighth, Dave Jinks in ninth. And for these drivers now, this track has spread out itself quite a bit, with only a couple of drivers actually remaining in the race. Attrition has been very, very high here, with Matthew Lambertson, Mark Warmington, Nico Bram and Dave Jinks all classified out of the race. And what was a pretty small field here as always is the case in the month of May, as people are focusing on other activities, including, of course, the Indianapolis 500 coming to you in 13 days' time, for those of you who are paying attention to that. Jarno really does look as though he's got himself this one in the bag, but I would really like to see how hard Daniel Lee can charge himself back up through this field, as he's currently scored 1 lap down, and just seeing where he is on the racetrack, he's actually about a lap and a half down. So realistically, the only driver he's going to have an opportunity to try and pass is that of Randy Cosno and Yves Warner. Yves Warner currently sat in the 88 machine. He'll be really impressed by this 4th position. He said that he needs to get some solid points in the road course if he's going to get himself back into the hunt for the championship this year. Randy Cosno, he scored in 5th. He'll really be happy with that performance as well. But Daniel Lee, he has the opportunity to probably get himself into the top 4. I think Thomas Cronin 3rd is just a little bit too far away for even the best of recovery drives to help Daniel Lee now. So you're just having a look at Jarno Matikainen, your race leader, who is doing some solid lap time still in that Glacier racing machine.
Yep, and Jussi Nieminen behind him in 2nd position, 0.2 of a second behind, 0.2 of a second slower that last time by, and the only one that is able to match their pace currently is Daniel Lee, but him as well being a 1 lap down, that's not going to do that much for him. But trivia of the day, Will, how many guys have led this race?
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
4. Well,
3.
No, Nico Brand didn't actually lead it down past the start-finish line. So yeah, 3 drivers. Yeah, because for those of you who are just joining us, hello, welcome. We are over halfway through, currently working lap number 36 of 58 here at Oulton Park Raceway. Biggest story of the day, for those of you who are just joining us, Nico Brand coming down to bring the field to the green flag, just putting the power down half a second maybe too early, spinning those tyres, careening himself into the right-hand side wall that separates the track from pit lane. So he never actually led coming to the green flag. That gave Daniel Lee the race lead, and he was on an interesting strategy, doing a 2-stop strategy instead of the standard 1 here. And as he came out of pit lane on his 2nd pit stop, just got collected with Dave Jinks in the number 76 car, who, letting Jarno Matikainen go by on the inside, got himself a little bit too far to the left onto the grass, spun across the racetrack, and just as we saw with Nico Brandt, I believe, back at Mid-Ohio, the leader was taken out of the race by a driver spinning out of pit lane, while spinning on the racetrack as the driver was coming out of pit lane.
Yeah, we haven't seen that much track positions gained from overtakings, but we have seen them due to several personal off-tracks. That's a pretty dramatic race, one of the most dramatic races of the season so far, even though we had drama in every single race.
Yeah, and as Mark Warmington eloquently put it after he crashed out early on, he said the key to this race is survival, and it really is the case here. Mark Warmington, he's going to be credited with 11th and penultimate position, finishing position here, and because this track, getting off track is a bit like Mossport as well. You mentioned Laguna's Sake, it's a bit like Mossport as well. Once you get off track, it's so difficult to slow that car down, turn it in the right direction to have any hope of bringing it back onto track. In many ways, it's got a little bit of Road America resemblance as well, with the walls so close to the racetrack.
Yeah, personally, I have tried to avoid this track as much as I can, because in my books, this track has trouble written all over it.
Yeah, more drama for Daniel Lee. Sorry, he, I believe, is out of the race now, losing it pretty much at the same point that Nico Brandt lost it. However, this time Daniel Lee, as he was putting the power down, he just hit the wall on the left-hand side, whereas Nico Brandt lost it on the right. So that number 64 day, after winning last time out at Brands Hatch, his day looks as though it might be done.
Yeah, looking at the replay now, what happened coming out of the last corner here. Yeah, again, the icy grass just makes its toll, but what? That was an interesting move. He saved the exit of the corner, and the middle of the straightaway he clipped the grass. That was pretty well, what would be the right adjective for that one?
I don't know. It looks as though he was just trying to take as far as
over-aggressive.
Yeah, trying to take as tight a line as possible onto the main straightaway, and just got himself literally an inch too far to the left, and he almost saved it. Then he hit the barrier, got himself a tank slapper, and then as he brought it back on, it literally just looked as though there was nowhere for his car to go. I think he would have been able to drive it back out though, because it looked as though initially he only got himself some front wing damage until he hit the I think until his final impact, he might have got himself a tiny bit of suspension damage.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, clipped just an inch over the grass, but around this racetrack, clipping an inch is basically as taking a green mile.
Yep. So less than 20 laps to go here at Oulton Park. Jarno Mäkinen, he is still your race leader. Gap between himself and Jussi Nieminen is now up to 28 seconds. The one question we have to ask, though, is Jarno Mäkinen close on fuel? When he had to save a little bit, could this bring Jussi Nieminen back into the picture? Thomas Kroll is currently sat in the 3rd position. Yves Warner is in 4th. Randy Crosney is rounding out your top 5.
Actually, I'm looking at the lap gaps right now, and the gap between Jarno and Jussi across the start and finish line was 29.4 seconds, and that's more than a pit stop. So Jarno actually, if he's short on fuel, he can survive a splash.
And with Daniel Lee being kind of put out of the picture about 20 laps ago now, kind of changing the strategy there for Jarno, should he have to make his battle dash. I think if he sat behind, sat around Daniel Lee, maybe he would have tried to conserve a bit of fuel. But now he knows he's got the gap to Jussi, he can try to push that a little bit further so that, he doesn't have to do the laborious process of trying to save half a lap here, half a lap there. And if he needs to make a pit stop, he's now got the time in hand for him, as he's currently working lap 40 of 58 here. Thomas Kroll, we haven't talked about him much in the number 63 car, but it looks as though for the moment he's got himself a solid 3rd position.
Yeah, indeed, and like I said, if Nico Brandt and Daniel Lee didn't have those misfortunes they had, would have been interesting to see how Thomas Kroll would have been able to cope with those guys. I mean, if Daniel Lee was on a weird 2-stop strategy or 3-stopper, and Nico Brandt was, I would take a guess and say he had a heavy fuel. Would have been interesting to see how Thomas Kroll would have been able to survive. I mean, top 5 would have been short, but more than that, it would have been fun to see. Now he's actually been most of the race. He's just been in the shadows, and now he's still in 3rd place, but we haven't talked about him much.
Yeah, and he's getting closed down a little bit by Yves Warner in that number 88 car. It's going to be interesting to see whether Yves can continue to close that gap, but it's 19 seconds between these two drivers. We have ourselves, we haven't got ourselves really enough time for Yves to really close down, unless Thomas Kroll makes a mistake in that number 63 car. So as hard as Yves Warner is charging at the moment, I just don't think he has the laps, as we've only really got ourselves 18 laps to go.
He closed up 1.1 seconds that last lap by, and the gap between them was 11 seconds, and we have 17 laps to go. So if he continues this kind of charge, he will catch him at 6 to 7 laps before the end.
Yeah, sorry, I take that back then. Yoni, ever our technical expert, he knows this stuff a lot more better than me, but I think that for Thomas Kroll, the best thing he can do right now is try and keep himself on the racetrack. As I say that, he almost just shortcuts the track there for some strange reason. But, he's been running a very solid pace in this middle stage of this race. His last lap was a 1 minute 19.7. All of his lap times have been in that kind of 1 minute 19 bracket for the last 7 or 8 laps now. Whereas Yves Warner behind, he set a 1 minute 18.7 last time by. His lap times are a bit more erratic. Set 1 minute 18.1 lap before, but this time by, Yves Warner didn't gain as much. He only gained himself, but actually I take that back, about 1.1 seconds, because Whilst East One had a slower lap, so did Thomas Kroll.
Yep, and if he continues like this, it's going to take 10 seconds, so it's going to be 10 laps. So we're going to see a 6-lap shootout between Thomas Kroll and Yves Warner. Meanwhile, Will, trivia of the day 2. Who has, out of all the guys that started the race, who has the slowest, fastest lap of the race?
Slowest, fastest lap of the race? No idea. Dave James.
Julian Pham.
Julian Pham.
23.364.
Julian Pham currently sat in the 7th position in that number 78 nuclear energy car. But what it does show is that, once again, like we saw at Brands Hatch last week, not necessarily outright speed that's important, but endurance, as Jana getting very, very oversteered coming off turn number 12 there, I believe. It's not about overall speed, it's being able to survive on what is a very difficult racetrack, and even though Pham is currently scored 4 laps down, he's keeping it, for the most part, on the racetrack.
Yeah, indeed. These every time you are on a narrow track like Oulton Park and Laguna Seca or Infineon, or it's always at least 50% about survival, and after that the remaining 50% can be divided with racing and hot lapping, etc. But more than half of this narrow track racing is all about survival.
And next week we go back to the ovals. That is going to be an interesting race at Phoenix International Raceway. Phoenix, you know, going back to the ovals, Phoenix has always, for me, been one of the more difficult ovals on there, just because of the fact that it is a track that can be flat-footed all the way around, but it's often a lot kinder to your tyres. If you just made that tiny little lift in turn number 1, and with the new tyre model and the way it works, I think a lot of drivers are going to have to completely rethink their driving style as we go to Phoenix next week.
I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. I mean, obviously the NTM provides a lot of new challenges compared to OTM, what we have in an IndyCar, but I wouldn't say, definitely I won't say it's a bad thing. I mean, NTM has provided some of the best racing actions of the whole IndyCar season, so I can't say bad things about that.
So Jarno Mettekane is still your race leader, gap between himself and Justin Newman, 33.297. Thomas Kroll is sat in 4th position, keeping an eye on that battle for the in the 3rd position. Keeping an eye on that battle, Thomas Kroll last time by 1 minute 19.3, and then Yves Warner at 1 minute 22.
Whoa, what happened to Yves Warner?
So
Riley Crossnow took the 4th position.
Yeah, a very slow lap there for Yves Warner. So he came into pit lane. Yves is actually a 2-stop strategy, so he came to pit lane, and Randy Crossnow has moved himself up into 4th, but Yves is hunting him down.
Yeah, that pretty much solidifies Thomas Kroll's 3rd position. There's no way, no possible way that Randy Crossnow was able to catch 26.5 seconds to challenge Thomas Kroll for a 3rd position. And as we saw Thomas Kroll making the pit stop at lap 32, which is way more than a halfway marker, there's no way Thomas Kroll is going to go back in the pits.
So yeah, unless Thomas Kroll needs to make himself another pit stop, and we talked about this earlier, we think that he went as far as you can go on 1 tank of fuel. He should be able to do this race on 1 stop. So Thomas Kroll looks like he's solidified that 3rd position for the moment. Yves Warner is closing down Randy Crossnow. These two guys, best friends at times off the track. On the track, however, it's a different story. We know how aggressive Yves Warner can be. It's going to be a case of where he's going to find the point to try and overtake Randy Crossnow, if he can indeed do so. He's currently sat in 4th in that number 4 ROX machine. As Jenny Backman gets himself another text message there.
Indeed, I'm gonna murder whoever that guy is. Just keeps hammering my cell phone because I have to keep it on. Sorry, apologize for that. I cannot mute it because
down the inside.
I'm expecting a phone call.
Down the inside, Yves Warner manages to do a beautiful manoeuvre there to get himself back up into the 4th position. Randy Crossnow, just in some ways, just letting him go there. So Yves moving back up into the 4th position, but he has very little hope now of catching down Thomas Kroll unless he makes a mistake. Justin Newman, he's sat in that 2nd position. He really is in no man's land. He's literally got himself a 35-second gap to the front and a 31-second gap to the rear. So for UC, it really is that good old time attack phase that he's sat in.
Yeah, indeed, and we have like 12 and a half laps remaining in this race, and the only gap between on the racetrack smaller than 40 seconds is Eve Warner and Randy Crosno, and as we saw just now that Eve Warner made the move on Randy Crosno. I don't think Randy Crosno is going to be able to catch Eve Warner for that 4th place. But yeah, other than that, unless somebody gets a severe off-track and slowdown penalties, I would say this is pretty much a wrap.
Yeah, as you see there, UC Newham getting himself overtaken by Daniel Lee. Daniel Lee's currently scored 1 lap down. His next, he scored 2 laps down even with his second incident. Daniel Lee, he's just racing now for points. You know, he's ahead of Julian Fowler in the 7th position. Very little chance of really gaining any more spots in this race. Jarno, in the meanwhile, he's just setting a stonking pace out front. It was 1 minute 18.3 last time by. And I really have to say, should Daniel Lee and Jarno have actually had an on-track battle, I wouldn't have bet against Jarno actually taking this race win on merit anyway, because his lap times in the second half of the race really have been strong.
Yeah, Jarno is every time I race Jarno on the racetrack. Last night, for example, we had a truck race at Richmond, and I just told him that just take it easy on the throttle, okay? I mean, the first 20 or 30 laps, I mean, the setup is slippery, etc. And he was like, "Oh God, no way! I'm gonna just go flat out all the way." And he was struggling out of 120 laps. He was struggling the first 60 because he refused to do the smart way around. But as he got himself familiar with the track, he was actually, in the end, he was only like a 10th slower per lap, and he had 0 practice going into that race. But Jarno always tends to have sort of a winner's thinking, that he always goes like Ayrton Senna feeling that you cannot slow down or you're going to end up in a wall. He always goes flat out no matter what lap you're on.
Yeah, and last time by 1 minute 18.2 for Jarno Etikam as he comes across the line. 11 laps to go here at Oulton Park. Round 11 of the Afterburn Indycar Series presented by Glacier TV. And it'd be interesting to see Jarno in an IndyCar Oval. We've only seen him on the road courses here. And I think, you know, some of the tracks that aren't flat out, especially perhaps Phoenix next week, for example, be interesting to see how Jarno takes everything he's learned in other series and builds that into an oval race, because on paper at the moment he's looking as though he's coming to the series and he's already become a very strong contender.
Yeah, Jarno loves aero cars, HPDs, Indy cars, not the F1 that much, but Star Mazda HPD IndyCar, and he's mainly been driving HPDs because of the fact that he just likes to piss me off every time when I'm in the Ford GT and he tries to lap me and wreck me. But every time, I haven't had that much chance to race him with an IndyCar since I don't personally enjoy the car that much. But yeah, every time the Club Finland guys just get together, the IndyCar fixed series seems to be the one to go with, and Jarno always seems to be keen to race this car. And yeah, I have to say that at the start he was constantly wrecking in the first 2 laps, and now he seems to have developed some kind of relationship with NTM and the IndyCar.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see whether his teammate Marco Beaton will show up at some point, to see whether those two will have be able to battle it out on track one day. So, Marco, if you're listening, get your backside on track. Meanwhile, Randy Crosno, he's dropped to about 1.5 seconds behind Yves Warner, but that gap between those two really has kind of stabilised. Yves Warner not really being able to pull out as big an advantage as you would expect to over Randy Crosno, as in fact last time by, Yves Warner at 1 minute 22.6.
Something happened to Crosno.
Yeah. Also, he just got off track there in the final corner. Just got a bit loose off the final corner there and getting it back on, but for Crosno, that is going to really pay to his chance to get up into the 4th position.
Yeah, looking at the replay right now, it's coming into the last corner soonish. There we go, breaking into the last corner, see what happens.
just getting it loose.
Yeah, just
An
kind
exit.
of, yeah, inside corner. It's just spun the wheels. Too much on the throttle. But no harm done.
Yeah, one of the things I heard a lot from drivers before this race is that it's very difficult to put the power down on this track. We saw that all the way down, back as the field was coming to the green flag and Nico Brown. But a lot of drivers talking about things like diff, how much diff they're going to run on this track to see whether or not they can combat that, or try and run the car a little bit tighter, which will hurt them a little bit in the middle of the corners, but enable them to put the power down coming off. Can I go back to Daniel Lee quickly? His last lap, a 1 minute 17.977. His last couple of laps, in fact his last 7 laps, have all been in that 1 minute 17 bracket. So to re-piece the puzzle together, himself and Jarno had a bit of a slow lap that last time actually, to piece it all back together. So Jarno, he came down into pit lane. Jarno did come down into pit lane off of our screens at the completion of lap 50, so he would have had to have made that second stop anyway. So all the arguments over himself and Daniel Lee, they would have been unfounded.
Yeah, that was surprising. My bet is that Jarno just estimated the fuel wrong at the start of the race. I mean, I can't understand why would he go 27 laps, then full tank, and then having to do a splash. That just makes no sense at all. I mean, having a slow car at the start when you know you're going to stop 2 times. So my guess is that just underestimating the fuel consumption and just probably not losing the race because of it, but just giving him an extra heart attack there.
Yeah, so apologies not being able to show you that, but Jarno came down his pit lane, made a pit stop, came out, no issues at all. So there's your summary. And for more information, go to iRacing.com. He is still your race leader. Captain himself and UC Newman is now 35.7 seconds. In fact, it should be a little bit less than that now. I'll take that back, unless UC has come down pit lane himself. Thomas Kroll is currently sat in the 3rd spot. As having a look at UC Newman as he comes across the line, the gap is now down actually to 16.8 seconds, as he is going to be putting a lap on Randy Crosno in the next couple of corners or so. Randy Crosno currently sat in the 5th position. Good result for him so far in that number 4 Aero X racing machine, and it looks as though Newman is going to probably catch him down that long back straightaway, but only if he gets a good drive off it. And it looks like he's getting himself a drive. Will Crosno just pull to one side, because it really is single file as they come to that chicane. You see Crosno getting off the throttle there. He may go around the long way, but you see, getting the job done. And we haven't talked about that chicane, but really it is single file down there, just because of the fact the tyre barriers are so close to the edge of the racetrack that you don't want to go too wide into there, because you've literally got inches between yourself, the other car, and the barriers.
Yeah, that almost reminds me that every time I see that Oulton Park tire barriers in the chicane, always reminds me of the Monza race at 1996 in the F1, when they first didn't have the chicane, no tires at the chicane in the qualifying. Then they warned the drivers not to cut off the chicane. Drivers did it anyway, and then they threw in the tire barriers, which caused a severe amount of spins coming out of the chicane, because the cars just clipped the tire barriers. And every time I see that, I just get the same intention. Like, when you approach that and you see the tire barriers, it's just no way you want to go nowhere near them, but you have to if you want to nail a lap.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. And back in 1994, when they put the chicane up at Air Rouge, and they didn't actually reconfigure the track itself, so they just put tyre barriers there. And they did the same thing at Spain, I think, that year. Those whole temporary chicane things. And
yeah, did Barcelona had the same?
Yeah, they did, back at Spain in 94.
Yep.
And it's that whole thing, it's like, it stops drivers from cutting the corner, but at the end of the day, if you're going to crash, then you're going to be spewing tyre barriers all across the racetrack.
Yeah, plus if that tyre barrier is just going to stop you from going forward, you're going to end up right in the middle of the racing line, which is the only race line through that complex. So not the safest way to not the way to promote safety for sure.
So Jarno Mettekane, he's still your race leader, gap between himself and UC Newman now up to 18.5 seconds, as Jarno Mettekane has himself about 5.5 laps to go, and without putting the curse on anyone, this is always the point where these races become interesting with 5 laps to go, and I have no understanding why.
Yeah, we seem to have a trend this season that every time it's on last 3 laps, whether it's a Tortric Racing Touring Car Championship, whether it's a Super Cup, or whether it's Indycar, or you name it, every time there seems to be drama in the last 5 laps. Especially in the last Brands Hatch Indy race, we saw more than enough drama in the last few segments of the race. There was like one engine failure in the last 3 laps.
Yep, Carson Butchers, who unfortunately can't be racing here today. Carson, if you're watching, I hope you get well soon. They've had himself some issues this week. He literally leading, I think he led 148 laps of Brands Hatch last week, and then with literally 3 laps to go, poof, his engine went after getting himself a little bit of damage on that bump in turn number 1. Jana comes past the line, 5 laps to go for him now. His last lap, 1 minute 17.666. Let's not let that be a bad omen as he's kind of coming down into turn number 3. And that number 34 Glacier Racing car, they're doing a sterling job out there, bridging that gap up to over 19 seconds between himself and Yusin Hiram. In fact, he could probably come down pit lane again and almost have enough room to come back out.
Yeah, but still, as we see, Jarno is not backing off an inch. He's just going flat out all the way, even though he could afford to lose 4 seconds a lap. But he still wants to maintain the solid rhythm, so he doesn't get into any driver errors, pointless missing braking spots or anything. He just wants to maintain the rhythm, just like a real racer would do. That's a nice what do you call it? A nice
attitude.
Yeah. Attitude of a real racer. I mean, you just don't want to back off.
No, and we've seen it so many times before, not only after an IndyCar series, but in real life all the time. As soon as you say to the driver, hit a fuel number, or back off a little bit, save your tyres, or this, that and the other, you always see that's the moment. I think the most famous one of those is 1988, Ayrton Senna at Monaco. As soon as he snapped out of that racing trance, he ended up in the wall. And I think, it really does sum up that once these drivers get themselves into that groove, into that rhythm, you almost don't want to snap them out of it, because as soon as they get out of it, they've all of a sudden got to get back into that zone, and that's often where those incidents happen. As Matty Kane there, 1 minute 17.718 last time by, got the lap traffic of Julian Pham ahead of him. He should be able to, I think he'll catch him as they come out of the chicane.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the racing rhythm, it's not only maintaining a solid race pace, it's only, in my opinion, it also applies to overtaking. I mean, let's say you have 2 equally paced guys that start the race positions 1 and 2, and they just hot lap each other and tailor each other the whole race without possibly overtaking, no overtakings at all. But if you take that same scenario but put the one guy to the end of the field and having to overtake every single car in front of him before reaching that the leading car, some drivers tend to always create a rhythm for overtaking as well, and the more cars you overtake, the more comfortable you get into the overtaking maneuvers, and that sometimes is as an assisting factor. It's not necessarily a slowing one.
Yeah, and that's something that can help Jan out as well, as you talked about earlier. Racing the HPDs, it's something he has to get himself into a rhythm quite a lot. Racing with the Corvettes and the Ford GT, so he has experience of not only lapping slower cars, but realising the speed differential, the differences in braking zones, and I think that's one of the things that really has helped him in this race today, as he's currently working lap number 56 of 58. Last time by 1 minute 18.234, just a little bit slower as he lapped Julian Pham. He had to go around the outside of Knickerbrook corner. We haven't talked about that corner, but it was so named because when they were doing tree demolition work there, they found a pair of female underwear, and they saw the woman and her partner at the time running away from the scene. There's your fun fact today.
Haven't heard about that. I just might go out to the race to look for some more underpants.
Thomas Kroll, he is solidly now in that 3rd position. Very little chance of him coming under attack from Yves Warner, but he's a good 40 seconds almost now, 45 seconds almost behind Yusin Ninnemann in that battle for the 2nd position. So this field spreading out, it really does show the drivers who have got that concentration. And we haven't talked about that number 82 car a lot today, but Nimmerman has done a good job of just running his own race and not getting too perturbed by the fact that, you know, Matt Kay and earlier on Daniel Lee were pulling ahead of him.
Yeah, usually seems to be one of the racers in any race I've seen so far in the IndyCar series that usually always seems to be in the shadows, just driving his own race, not getting into any crashes, avoiding all the trouble, just cruising along and just, well, not saying gathering the remaining points, but always seems to be like the one that's not directly involved in the heat of the battle.
And as they come across the line this time by, the white flag is going to be in air. As you see Jarno Mäkinen coming underneath that car lube bridge, the one that caught me out earlier on in the race at the start of the race. But I didn't realise they start the race so close to the start-finish line, even though it's such a short track. The white flag now is in air. Jarno Mäkinen, 2.69 miles left to go, coming into turn number 1. And Jarno really done a strong race here now, as he's going to just have to hold his nerve for another 2 miles or so, bringing it into that fast sweeping turn number 2. And then he got himself a nice straightaway here, building up some speed, building some momentum, and then hit your braking zone perfectly, get off the throttle, sweep it through turn number 3, and now down into that long 180 degree corner for turn number 4 that I'm sure would be called a carousel if this was an American racetrack.
Yeah, I bet it would. Yeah, by the way, I have to mention that meanwhile Daniel Lee has done a valiant effort, even though being 2 laps down, he's still lapping 117.3s. Yeah,
so solid, fast lap times there for Daniel Lee. As you see, through the Knickerbock corner for the final time, comes Jarno Mäkinen in that number 34 Glacier Racing Machine under the Advan Bridge. He's only got himself a couple of corners left to go. Could almost crash it and limp it home from here. He's that far ahead as he comes underneath the Carlu Bridge for the final time. Literally now, just a couple of corners left to go for Jarno Mäkinen, driving for Glacier Racing through the final corner. You see a car ahead of him, last slow on the racetrack. That, I believe, was Thomas Kroll. And meanwhile, Jarno Mäkinen is your winner here at Oulton Park.
And the trendy Wiggles.
Trendy Wiggles. And Thomas Kroll, I tell you what, I'm not sure whether that was intentional or not, but he saved himself one more lap of hell there, as he gets himself just a little bit loose off the penultimate corner, as we've seen a couple of others do. That high curve on that last corner, catching so many out, and as he's recovering there, Jarno Mäkinen overtaking him, and Thomas Kroll doesn't have to do that final lap.
Indeed, and does it look as though he's run out of fuel? I mean, just watching him right now on the monitors and on the screen, and he's going very slowly. But whether it's just a parade lap or so, that machine sounds strange.
But Thomas Kroll he gets himself his 3rd position. And I tell you what, we haven't talked about this, but it's a Finland 1-2 here today.
I didn't want to mention that. You know why.
So to run through your final race results, Jarno Mäkinen in the number 34 Glacier Racing Machine takes his first victory in the Afterburn IndyCar Series, winning the race by 25.2 seconds over UC Nimmerman. A sterling job by that number 82 car there, coming home in the 2nd spot. Thomas Kroll, he comes home in 3rd in the number 63 machine, with Yves Warner in 4th, Randy Krosno in 5th. Daniel Lee, after having that horrendous moment with Dave Jinks about midway through this race, he comes home in the 6th position, albeit 2 laps down. Then Julian Pham in 7th, and Dave Stowe in 8th, and then your retirement, Dave Jinks in 9th, Nico Brandt in 10th, Mark Warmington in 11th, and Matthew Lambertson rounding out your race grid thing. And we do it every week. Driver of the day.
This is a tough one because I mean, Daniel Lee was fast, did mistakes, got caught up in things that were not his fault, lapped consistently but was very fast till the end, but still finished in 6th. Then we have Jussi Nieminen in 2nd place, being in the shadows. Then we have Jarno Mäkinen doing a 2-stopper, a weird 2-stopper, and winning the race. And I'm gonna put my money on Jussi Nieminen. One stop. The only guy in the top 4 doing a one stop.
Yeah, UC did a great job there at number 82. We talked about the fact he was pretty much running by himself, and it's always the most difficult thing for drivers to do: run by themselves, and still keep up that constant momentum on the racetrack. So a great job there by UC coming home in second. However, your race winner, Jana Matakaya, in the number 34 machine. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an interesting race for you. At one point, really did look as though it's going to come down to strategy with you and Daniel Lee until the number 64 machine had his incident at the midway point. At what point did you start putting yourself into cruise control mode, if indeed you did at all?
I didn't. I just took a little bit too low fuel on the pits and had to quit second time.
Did you realise that at any point during the race, or was it just a case of well, yeah. First of all, did you realise? At what point did you realise you had too little fuel in your tank?
Right away when I exited pits.
And for that second stint of the race, you were doing some really good laps. Were you just trying to get yourself enough of a gap so that UC Nimmerman wouldn't overtake you on the racetrack?
Yeah. I didn't really, well, push that hard, but just try to make consistent laps and finish the race.
And you've done 2 races on the road courses so far, with some solid finishes in both. Are we going to see you on an oval?
I have no idea. Hopefully.
No worries. Well done on your race victory. We're going to bring in 4th place finisher, Yves Warner. Hello.
Alright, well.
Came home 4th. Had some interesting moments in the race in that number 88 Team Afterburn machine. Take us through your day.
Yeah, I went to the race without practice, and I didn't have any high expectations, so I'm very happy with 4th place. Nice finish for me on a road track.
And I remember I talked to you last week, and you said that if you're going to have any chance of getting yourself into contention to win back-to-back championships in the Afterburn Indycar Series, you're going to have to get yourself strong finishes here. At what level do you set yourself coming into these road races? Is it just consistency, or do you really try and go for every position you can get?
I mean, I like to go for every position I can get, but here on the road tracks it's very important to drive very consistent, so I tried to do my best, and I had just one moment where I hit the tire wall, so it was pretty fine for me.
And I don't know if it was me, but it seemed like you were actually learning the track as you were going along, because your lap times at the start of the race weren't that great, and then all of a sudden you started getting yourself within about half a second of the race leaders.
Yeah, I saw that on the racetrack. By the way, I always listen to you guys on the road track, so it was I had some pretty nice information about the times of the guys in front of me. But when I saw that they couldn't get Thomas Kroll, I just drive a little bit slower, because I had Randy behind me, and I just want to maintain the position.
Well, congratulations on your 4th place position, and Randy, 2 good finishes in a row for you. Well done.
Well, thank you very much. That was kind of fun.
Are you thinking now that after a string of bad luck earlier on in the season, that's kind of finally over now?
Yeah, everything goes in streaks. So yeah, I'm hoping that bad luck is behind me. But a lot of that bad luck was actually caused by my own fool actions. So you kind of create your own luck. So yeah, I'm ready for a good string, I hope.
And just how difficult was it to relearn this Oulton Park racetrack? Because it's very narrow and it's got some pretty steep elevation changes, and in many ways it's a bit like Mosport, which we raced that early on in the season.
Yeah, I really like this track. For some reason, when I started running road, the fixed was here, and so I put a lot of time and effort into learning the track in the fixed series. And so when today's race came along, I just grabbed the open setup and kind of learned the differences a little bit faster, and was able to bring it home and finish. I really wasn't racing for any positions out there. I was simply racing the track. All I wanted to do was finish, but It was, with all that said, it was fun running with Eves. He and I swapped positions a couple times when one of us would goof up.
And going back to an oval next week at Phoenix, and obviously both yourself and Eves are kind of more orientated toward the oval racetracks. I think that's what I'm looking for. You're more oval specialists. But Phoenix is a very, very difficult oval.
Yeah, that what they call the jewel in the desert in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, it's a tough oval. I think the road guys are going to do pretty good on that oval because it's not as much of a hold the gas to the floor and go. So I think the road guys are going to fare well next week in Phoenix.
And I mean, last season, up until last season, Phoenix was a track that you pretty much could flat foot all the way around. If you knew how to play about the weight jacket mid-core and all that sort of stuff. But with the new tyre package we have, that's not going to be possible. So it's going to be very interesting to see how drivers react next week.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't stepped on the Phoenix oval with the new tire model, but with the other tracks I've been with on the new tire model, I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be flat out. I think you have to use the tools in your car, and you're going to have to lift. And again, that's why I kind of think the road guys are going to enjoy this oval.
Well, congratulations on your 5th finish. And Daniel Lee, last week you had luck go your way. This week it was kind of the opposite.
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a shame. Bit of a shame, wasn't it? When Nico exited, pretty bizarrely, I thought I could take it easy a little bit. Maybe I was going to be out in front more than I thought, more than I would have liked. But Jarno was sticking pretty well. On the first pit stop at about 14-15, somewhere around that, I didn't take any fuel. I just wanted some tyres because I was trying to engineer a chase for myself. Didn't really need to go in there, but I wanted to because that would put me behind Jarno and Yusi, and I could see what I could actually do. Seemed like a pretty sound plan until Dave Jinks went into the side of it. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. That completely blindsided me, and that was it. 2 minutes in the tow, 2 minutes in the pits, and what can you do from there?
Yeah, and it looked as though that you pretty much had nowhere to go coming out of pit lane. The only obstruction could have been, just stamping on the brakes, but that fresh rub on your car, it's not the sort of thing you wanted to do. But at the same time, looking at it, it would have been very close to getting a black flag, even if you had have got around Dave Jinks. But tough day for you. I mean, how do you put those sort of races into perspective after being, in the top 2 fastest cars all race long and coming home in the 6th position?
Well, there's no do-overs. You can't just join another game in about 2 hours. You just can't do it. So it's just one of those things. Sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it don't. Yeah, like you say, the white line trouble that I usually have, I would have had that again because I was trying to go around Dave. Other than that, it would have been alright, and it would have been a pretty good second half of the race. But so much for that. A spanner in the works.
And we're seeing you on 2 road courses in a row with some solid finishes. We're going to see you in an oval?
I'm not too sure about that. I've tried oval. I tried the trucks and the Class A, just a tiny bit, but it just doesn't seem to do it for me quite so much. I'm not too sure, but you'll definitely see me on the next road course, whatever that is, or whatever that might be.
Yep. Well, we're going to be next at a road course at Twinman Motegi. Obviously, we take a break from the Indy 500 week, so that'll be the first weekend in June. And I'm feeling nice, and just because the Finns dominated yesterday in Talk Creek Racing, dominated today in the Afterburn IndyCar series, Yoni, turn your mic on and interview Jarno in your own language.
Oh crap. Jarno, onnittelut kisan voitosta.
Kiitos.
Oliko tylsää hotlappia vai menikö ihan niinku... Olitko suunnitellut tommoista kisaa vai miten oli,
No.
mikä oli alustava plääni? Ja mikä ihmeessä sun pittistrategia oli?
No, kyllä se aika lailla silleen meni, mitä pitikin, mutta ajattelin, että tulisi jossakin toisena tai kolmantena maaliin. Ja yhdellä pitillä menee.
Mutta siis miksi sä pittasit
Mutta
kierroksella 27, kun puoliväli oli 29?
Koska mulla oli 68 litraa bensa vai 1 kilo.
Eli et ottanut täyttä tankkia.
En ottanut täyttä tankkia. Yhtä klikkiä vajaan täyden tankki otin pitillä, joka sitten ei ollut tarpeeksi. Mä pitän ottaa se täys tankki.
Ok. Mites katoitko yhtään, mitä tolle Liille kävi, kun tuli pitiltä ulos, että tuli se kolari, niin näitkö yhtään?
En yhtään nähnyt, että ihmettelin vaan minne hävisi tosta relatiivista, että minkä takia siellä on toi Nieminen.
Ok, ei siinä mitään. Eiköhän tämä haastattelu tässä tuntuu niin helvetin tyhmältä haastatella suomeksi kansainvälisessä lähetyksessä, mutta...
Jep.
Just to sum up, to put it short, Jarno saw the Santa Claus and decided to say hello to him.
As I said, dominant by Finland in Glacier TV's broadcast this weekend after dominating their way in the Talk Creek Racing Summer Super Cup yesterday with a 1-2 finish in the GT1s and winning along in the GT2s. Finland 1-2 here today, so well done to Finland. Can the rest of the world close them back up? We'll find out next week. Talk Creek Racing, they head off to Suzuka, first of all for the Talk Creek Racing Touring Car Championship. That will be coming to you next Tuesday evening for the 30-minute sprint races. It's been very, very interesting starts there with a number of drivers being collected in first lap incidents. We'll see whether or not the cars can get themselves through turn 1 and 2 at what is one of the most difficult racetracks that we race on. And then Wednesday, the iRacing Skip Barber Premier Series will come to you live from Brands Hatch. Round 3, I believe. No, round 3 or round 4? One of the two. Round 3 or 4, one of the two, of the iRacing Skip Barber Premier Series on Glacier TV. Then next Saturday, we will have the Afterburn IndyCar Series from Phoenix, the Phoenix 225. The Afterburn IndyCar Series, that will be at 4 p.m. GMT, so set your watches for that. And then the Talk Creek Racing Summer Super Cup from Suzuka, and then the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, which will be coming to you from Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road, which will be a great way to warm up for the Indy 500 the following week. So meanwhile, for myself, from Yoni Backman and everyone here at Glacier TV, been great racing with you this week, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye!
Laters.